Any issues? Yours is off.
Yeah, is that better?
All right. Okay. Just to forewarn you, I did move over the podium just a couple inches, just so the camera, we're having problems seeing people when you guys moved around, so I gave them a little bit more space. Any other issues we need to talk about from the state's perspective?
Not at this time.
And Mr. Stacker?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I think the jury is just coming up right now. Again, they're all here. Just before I bring them in, again, we might go a little bit past noon today, and I'll still take a break, and then we have I have that hearing at 1 o'clock, which is closed. Just to remind everybody it's closed, so please don't walk in between 1 and 1:30. The light outside will turn off once we're done, but give everybody opportunity to leave for that hearing. And then we'll start probably back up at 1:30, 1:45, something like that. Okay, jury's here. Let's bring them in. Everybody may be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. As I said, we might start early if we're all here and we're all ready to go, so we can get going. I forgot about notification. Everything's okay for notification for this.
For victim contact, Judge? Yes.
All right. Forgot to ask that earlier. I want to call you the next witness. Go ahead.
Your Honor, the state calls Trevor Nalid to the stand.
Okay. Is it working?
Morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your full name and spell it, please?
My name is Trevor Naled, TREVORNALEID.
And where are you employed?
I'm employed by the Wisconsin Department of Justice at the State Crime Laboratory in Madison.
And what is your position at the crime laboratory?
I am a senior forensic scientist in the DNA analysis unit.
And how long have you been employed there?
About 12 and a half years.
Please describe the work you do as a forensic analyst or scientist.
I examine evidence for the presence of biological fluids. I then attempt to extract DNA from those items and then make comparisons to standards from known individuals in the case.
Do you hold any other positions at the State Crime Laboratory?
I do, yes.
What position is that?
I am a member of our crime scene response unit. I'm a team leader.
And can you describe for the jury what the crime scene response unit is?
It's a voluntary program that anybody can volunteer for. So we have people from all different disciplines, evidence technicians, photographers, DNA, latent prints, etc. It's a two-part process. When you first come on, you start as a photographer, so you undergo an approximately year-long training, basically learning all of the buttons and exactly how to use a camera, manual settings, etc. And then you're basically taking pictures in all sorts of different scenarios, darkness, bright light, and then different types of evidence as well. So like tire tracks, footwear impressions, latent prints. So that's why it takes a year.
Latent prints, that refers to fingerprints that may have been left behind?
Correct.
How long have you been with the crime scene response team?
I started in 2015. I was signed off for photography in 2016, July of 2016.
As part of your position, have you prepared or do you have a statement of qualifications?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Nallad, may I approach and show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 64?
Yes.
Can you tell me what that is, please?
This is my statement of qualifications, otherwise known as a CV.
CV meaning curriculum vitae.
Correct.
And can you describe for the jury your educational background?
I got my bachelor's degree in biochemistry from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and I have a master's degree from the University of Florida in forensic DNA and serology.
Besides that education, did you have additional training to become a DNA analyst?
Yes, I did.
Can you please describe that training?
Sure. I underwent approximately a year-long internal training program encompassing all aspects of DNA collection. It's a 4-step process, so extraction, getting the DNA off of whatever it came in on, whether it's an item of clothing or a swab. So next step is quantitation, which is the step that tells us how much DNA is there. We use the value from the quant step for amplification, so we know how much we need to amplify the sample. And then the 4th step is typing, where we actually get the profile. After we get the profile, we'll then do the same steps with standards from known individuals in the case, and then compare the profiles at the end. After that, we'll calculate statistics based off of the profiles, and then generate a report. The training itself also included mock court, 2 mock cases, and pretty much it.
So during the year-long training, did you have to, was there any testing, proficiency, knowledge-based before you started working cases?
Yes, there's a competency test, which is 2 different cases. For that, once you're signed off as a DNA analyst, you undergo proficiency testing twice a year.
During the process of training, can you estimate how many DNA samples you processed while in training?
Approximately 175.
I'm sorry, going back to exhibit number 64, your statement of qualifications, believe that particular copy was prepared in 2020. Does that appear to be accurate?
Yes.
Is the information contained on there accurate as to your qualifications in 2020?
Yes.
And is it still accurate today, or what modifications or additions would you make?
This list has how many times we've testified in court as well as our training. So I've undergone a few continuing education events or trainings. So other than that and the total number of court testimonies, I think it's pretty much the same.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibit 64.
No objection.
Received.
Does your laboratory hold any accreditations?
Yes.
Can you say what it is and what it means?
Sure. We are accredited under the ISO 17025 2017 international accreditation. Essentially, it's a voluntary program that any crime lab can undergo to show that it meets established standards. They're what controls our proficiency testing.
And what does proficiency testing mean?
It's tests that we have to do twice a year just to show that we get the results that are expected. So we ship off our results to a company that verifies that we got the expected results to show that we know what we're doing, essentially.
Are there any other inspections or quality assurance steps as part of the accreditation?
I don't know the exact time frame, but I believe we have an in-person audit every 4 years, and then we do an internal audit every other year. Every 2 years, I should say. I'm sorry.
Oh, sure.
Honor, may I approach?
Go ahead.
Now, I am showing you what's been marked as States Exhibit 65 and 66. Can you identify those for me?
Yes, I can. These are the certificates of accreditation from the ANAB National Accrediting Board.
And are these accreditations held by your laboratory currently?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibits 65 and 66.
Is there a distinction between 65 and 66?
Oh, 65 is a general certificate of accreditation. 66 is the scope, meaning the areas that they're certified.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection.
Will be received.
So, since receiving your training as a DNA analyst, approximately how many DNA cases have you worked?
Over 500.
And how many DNA samples have you processed as a trained analyst?
Over 2,200.
And are you able to estimate how many times you have performed duties on the crime scene response team?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's so variable. Sometimes you can go 3 months without getting called out. Sometimes you get called out 4 times in a week. So
you can't estimate, but you've done it multiple times.
yeah, I would say I've been to at least 50 scenes. I know I've been to 27 different counties for scenes.
And have you previously testified as an expert witness in courts of law?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, I would ask that the court recognize Mr. Nallad as an expert in both DNA and in crime scene collection.
I mean, technically, the court does not recognize experts. It's up to them. If there any objection, is them testifying as experts.
Judge, I guess solely within the scope of any notice that was filed by the state.
For the limited purpose, yes.
So were you called, in your capacity as a crime scene response team member, were you called to La Crosse County at a time in 2019 to perform, to examine a vehicle that was in evidence at the La Crosse County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I was.
Can you describe what was requested of you and what you did?
We were informed that an individual had notified police that there was a domestic incident the night before. She had returned to her house and found him in a snowbank. The vehicle, which was, I believe, a 2019 red Dodge Ram Rebel truck, was seized, and we were to look at the underside of that for any possible evidence.
And can you describe for the jury what general process you as a crime scene response team member takes when examining a vehicle in the manner that you were asked to do on, and I'm sorry, and the day you responded was March 19th of 2019?
Correct.
So what is the general process that you would do to examine a vehicle?
Usually we have a team lead and a photographer. Depending on the complexity of the scene, we may have one or two additional people. In this case, it was just myself and a photographer. The first thing that they'll do is take overall photographs of the vehicle as is, so every single direction around it, and then anything that you can see underneath. In this case, we were only asked to look at the exterior of the vehicle, so we did not do any interior investigation. Typically, we will inventory all items that are inside. We did not do that in this case.
Do you have any procedures or any tools to make sure that you don't forget any steps in your process?
We have a sort of checklist that we kind of go through.
And did you fill one out on this date?
Yes, I did. Yes.
One of them. Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 67. Can you tell me what that is, please?
Yes, this is the technical review checklist. So when I completed the report, this is actually for the photo log. So the photographer will actually do a photo log of each individual picture and make a short description of what the picture is. And so as the team lead, I was the technical reviewer for this.
And so you were the technical reviewer, and those are your initials on this document.
Correct.
And is there anything about this document that indicated that procedures were not followed in terms of documenting the vehicle photographically?
No.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibit 67.
No objection.
Received.
Mr. Nallett, I just handed you exhibits number 68 and 69. Can you describe for the court what exhibit 68 is?
Exhibit 68 is a printout of the photos that were taken by the photographer, Sammy Delfos was her name.
And you were the team leader on the date that those photographs were taken?
Correct.
And those photographs, do they fairly and accurately depict the Dodge Ram pickup truck and the items you located during your examination?
Yes, they do.
Does it appear that the photographs have been altered in any way?
No.
I did also hand you Exhibit 69, which is a USB drive with a label copy of, I think it says Crime Lab photos, something like that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And were you made aware that that's an exact copy of the paper printout that you have?
Yes, I was.
Your Honor, I would move for admissions of Exhibits 68 and 69.
No objection.
Received.
Permission to publish to the jury.
Go ahead.
So this is just a title slide describing the following photos. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yep.
Please advance.
SAMI. FOSSE.
This second photograph, can you describe what it's depicting, please?
We call that a photo slate, and it just has our case number, the date, the location, and then the initials of the photographer.
Is there any significance to the rulers on the sides or the colors at the bottom?
The colors are for the color correction that our photography unit is to make sure that everything is as it was viewed in person. The scale is for if we need to scale any photographs, or sometimes we'll put other scales next to items just to show the exact size of them, so that if pictures are either enlarged or made smaller, that it still shows the same scale.
What is this a photograph of?
This would be a photograph of the VIN number of the vehicle.
VIN standing for vehicle identification number?
Correct.
And is that a unique number to each vehicle that's manufactured?
Yes, it is.
And why do you take a picture of that?
Just to show that we are examining the vehicle that is on the search warrant. We'll check the VIN inside the vehicle as well as the search warrant to make sure that they match.
And you did that in this case?
Yes.
Can you describe what we are seeing in this particular photograph?
This is the front driver's corner of the vehicle in question.
And you mentioned earlier that you take pictures of the outside to document its condition.
Correct.
Did you note anything specific when examining the exterior of the vehicle?
Just that it was dirty, had a lot of road soot on it, but other than that, it was basically a brand new vehicle. Very good condition.
Just briefly describe what we're seeing here.
Would be the driver's side of the vehicle in question.
And you can see it basically from the side view mirror to the rear taillight.
Correct.
And what is this?
This would be the same side of the truck, just from the back corner, back driver's side corner.
And next photograph. And what is this?
Slightly angled view of the same thing, just showing the back left corner as well as part of the tailgate and trailer hitch of the truck.
Now, I'd like to just ask you a question about what we're seeing here. On the left side, or I'm sorry, the right side of the screen, do you recall what that is? The white object that's all along the right side of the screen?
I mean, you're talking about a garage door?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And do you happen to recall, like, in what manner this vehicle was stored? Was it secured?
It was in the evidence storage unit of the sheriff's office. Yes.
And so that is a secured area?
Yes.
Okay. Next slide, please. Can you please describe what this photograph is depicting?
This would be the rear passenger side of the same truck, looking toward the front of the vehicle.
And this photograph?
Same side of the vehicle, right side, passenger side, just more towards the front. A little bit of the rear passenger door as well as the front passenger door.
And what is this angle?
This would be from the front right passenger corner looking at the vehicle.
So after you took those photographs around the vehicle, did you take the vehicle anywhere else to examine it?
Yes.
And where did you take it?
The vehicle was brought across the street to D's, I don't know the correct full name, but it was D's Auto Care or something similar to that.
Is that the mechanic or repair shop that's right next to the area where this vehicle was stored?
Yes, it was basically just across the street.
And how was this vehicle transported there?
It was driven over.
And did you have any concerns about evidence integrity driving it for that short distance?
No.
Can you explain to the jury why not?
I was informed, well, first of all, we're looking at this vehicle approximately a month after the initial incident happened. It had been driven since then. I was informed that there was a snowstorm the night that this happened. So it would be expected that the roads would be wet. It would not be surprising to have any evidence washed away. The day that we came up to look at it, it was dry and we were just going across the street. So it's reasonable to expect that if we were going to lose evidence, it would have been gone already at that point. And I didn't think going across the street would any additional evidence.
You mentioned that the vehicle had been driven prior to this. Were you informed by whom?
Fiction calls for hearsay.
Sustain.
So when you got to D's, auto care specialists, how did you further examine the vehicle?
The truck was put on a lift and lifted up in the air so we could get underneath it and look at the underside better.
And this is image 10 from your photographs. Does this depict the underside of the vehicle and the lift?
Yes, it does.
Can you just point out which part is the lift?
The yellow parts on the bottom left and bottom right corners are the lift.
And can you explain what the jurors are seeing in this particular photo?
Sure. This would be a picture from the rear of the vehicle. You can see the spare tire and then the rear axle and the rear tires.
Now, did you or the photographer use any specialized equipment in doing your examination of this vehicle?
Yes, we did.
Can you explain what specialized equipment you used?
We used what's called an alternate light source. It's you can change the wavelength of the lights depending on what you're looking for. So it's used for a wide variety of things. One of them being hairs and fibers.
So would a juror, or I guess somebody who's not in the scientific field, be familiar with something like that, like a black light to illuminate body fluids somewhere?
Yes, that's another thing that it's used for, is detecting body fluids.
And also, in the process of taking these photographs, did you have a method for marking which photographs may be significant? Or your findings?
Could you expand on that?
Sure. Let me ask this question. Did you find any items underneath this vehicle?
Yes, we did.
And when you found those items, what did you do?
We would put typically on a normal scene, you would put a tent marker down, which is just the marker with a number on it. In cases like this where you can't just set a marker down because you're underneath the vehicle, we'll put a sticker with a number on it.
So you said this is the underneath side of the vehicle. I don't see any stickers, so this does not indicate you found anything in this particular view. Is that accurate?
This would be before we actually started marking items of evidence, so this is an expansion of the overall photographs that we took while it was in the evidence storage unit.
Okay, thank you. Next photograph, please. Can you describe what this picture depicts?
This is also the underbody of the vehicle with a skid plate on the left side.
That's the long black ridged object.
Correct.
And what's in the middle?
Right here would be the drive shaft of the vehicle.
Next photograph, please. And what does this depict?
This would be the underside of the vehicle from the front looking toward the rear. The drive shaft that we just talked about right here.
Next photo, please. And what is this?
This is basically the same picture, just taken a couple of steps back. So it's from the front looking towards the rear of the vehicle, underbody, obviously.
Is there a reason why the body of the vehicle looks white at the top?
I don't know why that is, no.
And these photographs were taken all together, and you did the technical, checklist, so you are certain that this vehicle displayed is the same?
Yes.
Next photo, please. What does this depict?
This appears to be just behind one of the wheels of the vehicle, the running board.
I'm going to be describing this, I guess, based on, position. The tire that we see in the right, is that the front or the rear of the vehicle? Can you tell?
I believe it is the front.
Next photograph, please. What does this picture depict?
It appears to be the rear of the vehicle with the muffler. So rear right side.
Please. And what does this show?
This would be just behind the front driver's side wheel with half of the wheel and then the running board.
The next photograph, please. And what does this show?
That also appears to be the front of the vehicle, the front right passenger wheel.
Next photo, please. And what does this show?
This is similar to the picture 2 pictures ago, the front driver's side wheel with running board.
Next picture, please. And what does this show?
Appears it's the front driver's side tire, the front bumper.
Next, please. And what does this show?
The rear driver's side tire with the running boards.
A next photograph, please. And what is this showing?
The rear driver's side tire with the back bumper and muffler.
Next photo, please. And what is this showing?
This would be one of the tires. I'm unsure which one, just by looking at this picture.
Is there something that would help you? That's okay. This is still just general overview, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Next photo, please. Can you explain what this is?
It appears to be the same tire that was just taken without the illumination in the middle.
Next photo, please. Can you explain what this is, please?
So those are the tent marker, or the sticker markers that I was talking about before. So that would be the first item that we marked.
Did you take notes as you located items?
I did, yes.
And what sort of things do you note when you're doing the processing of the evidence?
What it is, how long it is, color. Typically, that's it. What it looks like, I guess.
Now, do you recall, so in this photograph, you have the marker that some evidence was found. Do you recall what was found here with item 1?
I don't remember specific items. I know generally all items that we actually collected were apparent hairs or apparent fibers, and there was one possible fabric imprint.
Would something, would your receipt of physical evidence that was prepared refresh your recollection as to what is depicted in item with this photograph?
Yes, it would.
Handing you what's been marked as Exhibit 70? Is that your receipt of physical evidence?
Yes, it is.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what is depicted with item sticker 1?
Yes, it does.
What is depicted in this photograph?
That was an apparent hair near the front right passenger tire, brown in color.
And in this particular photograph, are you able to see that hair?
No.
Now, when you find an item like this hair, or you mentioned fibers, can you describe for the jury what your process is to document and collect it?
We'll first put that sticker on there, take photographs of it. Kind of hard to see in this picture, but there's a very small scale underneath the number so that you can do what we talked about before, where it will stay the same size relative to the size of the picture. For collection purposes, then we'll take a sterile tweezers. We have plastic ones. We also have metal ones that will use a 10% bleach solution to clean, to make sure that it's sterile in between uses. And then we will take the hair or fiber and stick it to the sticky part of a Post-it note. Those work very well because the tack on them is enough to hold it in place, but not enough to typically destroy the hair or fiber, whatever it is. We'll then fold the Post-it note onto itself and then put that into a larger package, evidence tape seal it, initial it, label it, and then hand it over to whichever officer is going to be taking it.
Is that process completed for each item recovered, so they're separately packaged and sealed?
Yes.
How do you ensure that there is no contamination on the sticky notes or Post-it note before you use that?
It's only used one time ever. So once we use one, we don't reuse it. We'll throw it out.
Next slide, please. Can you describe what's in slide 25, please?
I believe that is the same number 1 marker, just from a different angle.
And is there a different light source being used as well?
It looks like the flash maybe was not directed at the actual item in this photo.
Are you able to see the hair in this particular photograph?
I don't believe so.
Next slide, please. Can you please describe what this is?
That would be unraveling black electrical tape near the axle on the front passenger side of the vehicle.
Why did that catch your attention?
I'm not a car expert, but for the truck being less than a year old, I just mark things down or make note of things that just didn't look like they should. Essentially, the electrical tape was unraveling a little bit. Whether or not that had to do with anything, not for me to determine. I'm not an expert, so I just marked it.
And did you collect that item?
We did, yes.
Okay, and that was item number 2?
Correct.
And how did you package that?
I do not know off the top of my head.
Okay.
If it was a standard item of evidence, which it was, I would assume we put it in an envelope or a small brown bag, and then evidence tape sealed it.
Next slide, please. And so can you describe what's depicted in photo 27?
That just appears to be a zoomed-in photo of what we were just talking about with the electrical tape and then with the number 2 sticker applied.
Next photo, please. What are we looking at here in Exhibit 28?
So this is a view of the underside with the drive shaft right here and then a skid plate.
What is a skid plate?
Skid plate, usually metal, it protects the underside of the car, so if you run over rocks or something large, it's not going to rip apart the bottom of the vehicle.
And next slide, please. And what is this a photograph of?
That is a photograph of the drive shaft of the vehicle.
Next photograph, please. So I see there's a number on this. Can you describe, or what is depicted in this particular photograph?
That is marker number 3, which we have written down as fibers near the top of the drive shaft.
And are you able to see fibers in these photographs?
I don't see them, no.
Now, you talked about equipment and alternate light sources and things. So based on your experience in recovering evidence from crime scenes or objects, is it unusual to not see small items in photographs?
No, it's not unusual at all.
Next photo, please. And can you describe photo 31, please?
It's a zoomed-in photo of the previous one, so marker number 3, fibers from the top of the drive shaft.
Next photo, please. This is photograph 32. Can you explain what we're looking at to the jury, please?
Slightly washed out, but that's marker number 4. It's the front of the gas tank. There was a possible fabric imprint on it, so we marked it. And then you can see the skid plate underneath here as well.
What do you mean by fabric imprint?
Again, I'm not an expert. I don't know. Maybe it was something from the factory, but to me, it looked like there were maybe some striations consistent with like corduroy or jean material.
Judge, I guess I'm going to object. It's beyond the scope of any expert notice, and particularly if he's particularly foundation, if he's acknowledged that this is not a subject of expertise.
Sustain, the testimony will be struck. Go ahead.
You are. Can we be heard?
No, go on. He's not an expert in this type. He just said that. Move on.
Right. Next photograph, please. And I'm sorry, what is the item number? What is on the sticker with item 4?
Item 4 has the scale underneath it, and then this is just the same as the previous photo, just better exposure.
And is that's the gas tank I think you previously stated?
Correct.
Next photo, please. That's showing nothing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it appears to be a flash misfire.
All right.
Just to keep, we don't erase pictures because then if this one's missing, and you have the one before it and the one after it, the questions might arise on where that picture is. So we keep everything in regardless of if it's a good picture or not. So it appears to be a flash misfire.
Next photograph, please. And this again is showing the gas tank with the number 4 evidence marker.
Correct.
Next photo, please. Could you describe this photo?
Same picture again. Number 4 on the gas tank.
Now, are you using, can you explain the difference in the qualities between each of these photographs? Why do they look a little different?
Sometimes it's more beneficial to take multiple photos from different angles of items, specifically latent prints or footwear patterns. You can see different aspects of the actual ridge of it from different angles. This appears to be only using the flash from the camera. We have a cord that we can connect the flash to the camera, so it's not just connected to the top like you typically see. So the photographer may move the flash around, keeping the camera in the same area. So different areas will be illuminated in different photos.
And next photo, please. This is another view of the same item.
Correct.
All right. Next photo, please. And again, this is another view of the same item.
Correct.
Next photo. This is another view of the same item.
Correct. Yes.
Is there any difference with the light source, or what? Why is the quality of this particular photograph different?
I would assume it's because of what I had just talked about, where the flash would be moved around, and it just happened to look this way with this angle.
Next photo, please. Actually, can we go back? Thank you. So can you just point out the area that caught your interest on this particular photograph? Thank you. Next photo. What does this photograph depict?
Marker number 5 is right there, and that was an apparent hair from the front passenger suspension bar.
And was that collected in the same way that you described with the Post-it note and sealing in an envelope?
Yes, it was.
Next photograph, please. And what does this depict?
It's a zoomed in version of the previous photo with marker number 5.
Next photo, please. And can you tell me what this depicts?
Kind of hard to see, but marker number 6 is right here. So this is the drive shaft of the vehicle, the rear end of the drive shaft. And that was an apparent fiber on the weight on the rear end of the drive shaft.
On the
An apparent fiber on a weight. These little things right here.
that W-E-I-G-H-T?
Correct. Yeah, on the rear end of the drive shaft.
So you pointed out with the laser pointer these square objects that are applied to the drive shaft.
Yes.
Are they? Could you tell if they were fastened onto the drive shaft somehow?
I don't know exactly how, but yes, they are fastened to it.
Next photograph, please. What does photograph 43 show?
That is a zoomed in photo of the previous one, marker number 6, with the fiber on the drive shaft.
Again, could two questions. There appears to be 3 weights. Do you recall which weight from which you recovered the fiber?
The sticker would be on the same weight that the item was collected from. We try to get it as close as possible to it where we can still take photographs in the same field of view. So it would be the weight that the number 6 sticker is actually on.
And again, are you able to see the fiber in this particular photograph?
No.
Next photo, please. What does this depict?
That is the skid plate underneath the gas tank after being removed. There's marker number 7. There.
So what did you locate that was significant to you on that skid plate?
Marker 7 was an apparent fiber on the top of the rear skid plate.
Next photograph, please. Can you depict or describe this, please?
It's a zoomed in photo of the previous one, marker number 7, the apparent fiber on top of the rear skid plate.
Next photo, please. This photograph, number 46, what does this depict?
Marker number 8 right here is 2 apparent hairs from the driver's step. So it's the driver's door right above it.
And did you collect those together?
Yes, we did.
Is there any concern about collecting them together?
No, sometimes we'll take representative samples if there's multiple items in close proximity. We'll collect them as one item. So that's what happened in this case.
Next photograph, please. Can you describe this?
It's a zoomed in version of the previous photo, marker number 8, which is 2 apparent hairs from the driver's step.
Next photo, please. And this is another view of the same thing.
Correct.
Next photo, please. And again, this is another photograph of marker 8 where the 2 hairs were found.
Correct.
Next photo. And this is also a different angle. Or I see, is there something else here?
Yeah, marker 8 that we just talked about, but you can also see marker number 9 here, which was an apparent fiber from the side of the front skid plate.
Next photo. And that was photograph 50. Next photo, please. Photograph 51, can you explain what we're seeing here?
It's a zoomed in photo of the previous one, which is marker number 9, an apparent fiber from the side of the front skid plate.
In which, strike that. Next photo, please. And so this is the end of the photographs that were taken?
Correct. They're called index prints, where the end will just have thumbnails of all the pictures.
Now, once you collected all these items, and I think I asked this before, but you followed the same process that you described with the sticky pad and the envelope and the sealing tape?
Correct. For each item, yes.
Okay. Once you were done collecting it, what did you do with it?
We write what's called, well, it's an evidence receipt. So it's just a list of all of the items we collected, the marker number, and then what it is. And then we will turn it over to an officer at the scene, whoever is investigating the incident.
And in this case, does your receipt of physical evidence indicate who you turned the items over to?
Yes, it does.
Who was that?
It was Captain John Zimmerman.
And did you sign this receipt?
Yes, I did.
Did you did you prepare a report, a narrative report about the processing of the scene as well?
Yes, I did. Scene being the vehicle.
Now, after excuse me, what's the number of the receipt?
70.
70? Your Honor, I would move for receipt of Exhibit 70.
No objection for the purposes used.
And that would be received.
Now, later, were you requested to perform any analysis of items that you recovered from the underside of the truck?
Yes, I was.
And can you describe what type of analysis that you had performed?
I attempted DNA analysis on the apparent hairs.
And in the course of that process, do you prepare a report?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 71 for identification. Can you tell me what it is, please?
This would be my confidential report of laboratory findings dated June 19th, 2019.
Now, you described this briefly earlier. What does it take to perform a DNA analysis on items? Or what? Let me ask this way. What was submitted to you for DNA analysis?
Item I, an apparent hair near the front passenger tire. Item L1, an apparent hair from the front passenger suspension bar. Item L2, which was another of the same, apparent hair from the front passenger suspension bar. O1 was an apparent hair from the driver's step. O2 was the other hair from the driver's step. And item Q was a dried blood standard reportedly collected from Mark Phillips at autopsy.
Now, you described the process of performing DNA analysis earlier. Is that the process that you performed in this particular case?
Yes, it is.
And what was the result of your DNA analysis of these items?
During the second step, the quant step, no human DNA was detected from any of the hairs, so it stopped at that step. There was no amplification or typing.
Now, was it surprising to you to not find DNA in the apparent hairs?
Objection beyond the scope of the expert notice.
Overruled if it's part of his analysis.
Hairs are notoriously hard to get DNA out of. Any DNA from hairs typically comes from the root, so if there's not a root there, then there's a very slim likelihood that you're actually going to get a DNA profile.
And were your test results peer-reviewed?
Yes.
And is your report, which I believe is 71, is that an accurate report of your findings?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of Exhibit 71.
No objection.
Be received.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay. Crosse?
Thank you.
Could I get exhibits 508 and then 70 and 71, please?
I think they're up here.
Yeah, I do, sorry.
All right. Good morning, sir. So I want to start kind of with how you handle scenes like this. You handle sensitive forensic evidence for a living. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And sensitive forensic evidence can be something like hair or fiber evidence, right?
Correct.
It can be DNA evidence.
Correct.
It can be evidence of body fluids or other applications of body fluids.
Yes.
It can be any number of minute bits of evidence, correct?
Correct, yes.
And in your field of practice, it's important to be very cognizant of cross-contamination of that evidence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because it doesn't take much to contaminate a piece of evidence. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And contamination can take many forms, correct?
Yes.
It can take the form of losing some evidence in the process of inadvertently not preserving it or handling it in a way that causes evidence loss, right?
Yes, correct.
It can take the form of adding evidence that wasn't present before the evidence was collected.
Correct.
Or it can take the form of altering the evidence in terms of how it was positioned or in what manner it was presented at the time of collection.
Yeah.
And as a rule, as an analyst in the lab, for instance, you have very strict protocols to prevent cross-contamination. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, for instance, when you're doing DNA analysis, you're going to wipe down and sterilize your workstation between every single sample that you analyze, right?
Correct.
Because something as simple as a colleague sneezing across the room could contaminate whatever sample you happen to be testing, right?
That's correct.
And it's sometimes more difficult to prevent cross-contamination in the field. Would you agree?
Yes, for sure.
However, every reasonable effort should be taken to prevent cross-contamination of evidence while it's handled in the field. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And I assume that, I know for a fact that this is not your first vehicle case, right?
Correct. Yes.
In the course of examining vehicles, it's fairly common to preserve that vehicle on the back of a flatbed and take it to an evidence lockup or a garage or someplace for an examination, correct?
Correct, yes.
You do it that way because when the vehicle's on a flatbed, it's not coming into contact with whatever else might be in the road. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Wisconsin roads, particularly in La Crosse, are not particularly well known for being smooth, easy to drive on roads, right?
That's correct.
And if you're driving a vehicle, even over something as simple as a pothole, you can have cross-contamination with water, with substances on the road, with gravel, anything else that could come into contact with that vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when you arrived at the Sheriff's Department on March 19th of 2019, your initial photographs were of this vehicle inside of the Sheriff's Department evidence garage, right?
That's correct.
And you wanted to get a look underneath the vehicle on a lift, right?
Yes.
And the decision was made to take that truck to D's Auto Body. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at that point, was there any discussion of having D's bring their flatbed over to the Sheriff's Department, bringing the vehicle across the street so that you could avoid any cross-contamination in the process of driving that vehicle?
Objection, Your Honor. It assumes facts, not in evidence.
No, there was testimony that was driven over. Go ahead.
Well,
It was assumed facts that was driven over. Go
except
ahead. And
that
he
there was a flatbed available at
overruled.
D's.
Go ahead.
Was there any discussion about getting a flatbed to transport the truck over?
I do not recall that conversation.
My understanding of your testimony on direct was that this was just a matter of convenience, that it would be quicker to drive the vehicle rather than place it on a flatbed.
I don't know that that was the determining factor, but yes, it would have been easier to just drive it across the street.
And ultimately, the decision was made to just drive it across the street, knowing that there's a risk of contaminating or deteriorating the evidence on the underside of that truck.
Correct.
Now, I want to talk to you about the fibers themselves that you collected from the underside of the vehicle here, and I'm going to publish Exhibit 70, which has already been received. All right, Mr. Nollet, is this a zoomed-in version of your handwritten notes of the evidence that you collected in the course of this examination?
Yes, it is.
And I'm going to start with item number 1, the apparent hair near the front passenger tire, brown in color. You used the term apparent hair, Mr. Nollet, is that correct?
Correct.
Can we take that to mean that you're not making a scientific conclusion that what you collected is even a hair?
Exactly, yes.
And items tend to collect underside of vehicles on a regular basis just by nature of driving. Is that fair?
Yes, that's possible.
We saw a whole bunch of, I guess, grunge and grit and dirt on the underside of this vehicle, right?
Yes.
And it's not uncommon for a vehicle, particularly in Wisconsin, to look like that on the underside. Is that fair?
Correct, yes.
It's also not uncommon for apparent hairs or fibers to collect on the underside of a vehicle, right?
I guess that's fair, yeah.
And when you collect a fiber or an apparent hair like this, you agree that you have no idea when it was deposited underneath the vehicle. Is that fair?
That's correct.
You have no idea in what manner it was deposited.
Correct.
You have no manner in whether, or you have no idea in whether it was the process of transferring from another source or from an original collection by the vehicle driving on the driveway or driving on the roadway.
That is correct.
You have no idea whether or not the source comes from a mechanic or a technician working underneath the underside of an auto body.
Correct.
And just because you find an apparent hair or an apparent fiber in a location like item number 1 doesn't mean that that's where it was originally affixed to the vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Now, when you were dealing with apparent hairs, you agree that we're unable to distinguish in this case whether we're talking about human hairs or animal hairs?
That is correct.
We're unable to distinguish whether or not we're talking about a biological hair from a human or an animal or a synthetic fiber. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we also have plant fibers to deal with as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
So your job here is just to collect these, say kind of what it looks like, and then forward them on for analysis. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So the black electrical tape, item number 2, you testified that it just looked a little bit out of place to you. Is that correct?
Correct.
You have no indication that this tape was collected or deposited in the course of any collision on February 22nd of 2019. Is that correct?
Correct.
Could just be a mechanic working on part of the electrical system or whatever that is.
Yes.
Same thing with the number 3. Now, you noted that they were suspected fibers. Is that correct?
Yes.
And item number 3.
Not how they're noted.
I can rephrase.
Go ahead.
You noted fibers near the top of the drive shaft. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You did not note what type of suspected fibers these were. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, unsure of whether or not this is human, animal, synthetic, or plant-based fibers, correct?
Correct.
You just collected them because you were tasked with collecting any possible evidence underneath the vehicle.
Correct.
Item number 4 we've covered during your direct. Item number 5, an apparent hair from the front passenger suspension bar. Again, Mr. Nollet, you agree that you wrote the term apparent hair because you're not scientifically certain whether it's a hair or not, correct?
Correct.
Same thing with item number 6. Well, let me back up. Item number 6 says apparent fiber on weight of rear end of drive shaft. Is that correct?
Correct.
And this was were you involved in the transmission of evidence at all from your analysis to Ruth Hank at your laboratory?
I packaged things up and then handed them over. That's the extent of me touching any fibers related to this.
But you personally saw the placement of this fiber when it was photographed and collected. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm going to have a couple exhibits marked. This was in the state's PowerPoint, but I just... already been admitted in whole, Your Honor, or in the state's complete collection of exhibits, I would offer 511, 512.
Can you, they have image numbers on them. Is there a way you can tell us what each one is?
Sure. 511 is the image number ending with underscore 0042. 512 ends with underscore 0043.
Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Nallett, I'm move to publish 511, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
Go ahead.
So, zoom out again. This is the photo where we have kind of the Batman style lighting on exhibit number 6 there, right?
Yes.
Is exhibit number 6, you can see the photograph, or you can see the exhibit sticker in this photograph?
Slightly, yes, right in the middle.
And is that the location on the drive shaft that exhibit number 6 was collected from? Right on the weight where the exhibit sticker is?
Yes.
And would you agree that this is towards the rear end of the drive shaft of the vehicle?
Yes.
I'm going to show you exhibit 512 now. So a little bit closer view. Can I assume from the location of the exhibit sticker approximately in the middle of that weight that the fiber was approximately in the middle of that weight?
I don't know off the top of my head where exactly on the weight the actual fiber was.
And you're aware that this apparent fiber was transmitted to Ms. Hank at the crime lab for further analysis?
Yes.
Going back to exhibit 70. We have an apparent fiber at number 7 on the top of the rear skid plate, is that correct?
Correct.
And again, you say apparent fiber because you're not certain exactly what it is, right?
Exactly, yes.
And not certain exactly when or in what manner it was deposited.
Correct.
Same thing for the 2 apparent hairs depicted in exhibit number 8,
Correct.
as well as the apparent fiber from the front skid plate on exhibit number 9.
Correct.
All right. So, Mr. Nallett, I want to talk to you about your DNA analysis in this matter. So, you testified, and I take no issue with your testimony, that it's difficult sometimes to get DNA from the shaft of the hair, correct?
Correct.
However, sometimes you're able to extract human DNA from the root of the hair, is that correct?
Correct.
And in this case, you took a cutting of a sample, item I or I1, is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yeah, if I can.
I'm going to publish exhibit 71.
Okay.
All right. Is that correct, that you took a cutting of an apparent root in item I?
That's correct. Anytime we take cuttings or swabbings from a parent item, we have to what we call sub-designate it. So the main item would be the apparent hair, and then the cutting we took from that would be I1.
Okay. And after analyzing that apparent hair root designated as item I1, is it correct that you did not detect the presence of human hair or human DNA?
Correct.
And we can't even conclude from these results that the hairs were human. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's fair.
And we certainly can't conclude that they belong to Mark Phillips, correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. Nallett, I want to talk to you about the exterior condition of the truck briefly. Would you have noted any apparent damage to the vehicle from in any respect.
Yes.
And you're taking a very fine-tuned approach to examining this vehicle, right?
Correct.
I mean, you're looking at this with magnifying devices, right?
On occasion. I don't know that we did in this case.
You're looking at it with alternate light sources.
Correct.
And I should ask you, an alternate light source, is that what's commonly referred to in layman's terms as a black light?
Yes.
And you're using that because a black light can help you detect trace amounts of evidence, right?
That's correct.
One type of trace evidence that a black light can help you detect is possible blood, right?
Correct.
And you examine this vehicle with an alternate light source for the presence of possible blood, is that correct?
I don't believe we looked for blood with the ALS.
Well, did you use the ALS in the course of examining the underside of the vehicle?
Yes, we did.
And had you noticed the presence of possible blood, that's certainly something you would have noted, correct?
Yes.
You would have collected that?
Yes.
And can we assume that you did not detect in the course of your examination any possible blood?
That's correct.
Now, you described the truck as somewhat dirty, is that correct?
Yes.
In other words, didn't look like it had recently been through a car wash, right?
Correct.
And your understanding was that this truck had been stored inside of the Sheriff's Department garage since it was seized on February 22nd to the point of your examination on March 19th?
Correct.
So I'm going to get a couple of exhibits marked here. Knowledge, you've been with the crime lab since, you said 2015?
2011.
2011.
Crime scene response since 2015.
All right. And I assume that you've lived in Wisconsin at least that long?
Yeah, my whole life.
So you're familiar with the type of salt film or just scum that builds up on the sides of our cars during the wintertime. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you a couple of exhibits here. 514 is the...
Closer.
I'll show you exhibit 514 first. Does that photograph look familiar to you, sir?
Yes, it does.
Does that depict the condition of the Dodge Ram on the date that you examined it?
Yes, it does.
And would that photograph have been taken by the technician assisting you?
Yes.
I'm showing you exhibit 514. Does that similarly appear to be from the date of your examination of the truck?
Yes, it does.
And this was taken at the Sheriff's Department lockup, is that correct?
Correct.
Both of these photos, right?
Yes.
All right. Offer 513, 514.
Can we give an image number two on those?
Yes, Your Honor, 513 is underscore 0004. 514 is underscore 0005.
Okay. Any objection to being published? I think they were already done. Go ahead.
No objection.
All right. Publishing 513. All right. Mr. Nollet, I'm going to direct your attention to the area behind the driver's side passenger cab. Do you see, well, let me ask you first, do you see the presence of kind of that salt film that tends to accumulate on vehicles?
Yes, I do.
And do you see an area behind the driver's side rear door where that film appeared to have been wiped or marked in some respect?
It appears that in this picture, yes.
All right. And is that something that typically you're going to document on a scene like this?
Typically, yes.
Were you given any information about the nature or the mechanics of the alleged altercation that had occurred on February 22nd of 2019 before your examination?
No.
All right. I am going to publish Exhibit 4 or 514 now. And I'm going to zoom in the best I can here without causing glare. Why don't we do it this way? I'm going to approach with 514. Mr. Nolad, I'm showing you this, and can I direct your attention to that same area around the gas cap?
Yes.
Do you see the same area that appeared to be smeared in that salt film in that photograph as well?
Yes.
And it appears that we have some thinner lines running downwards from the smear near the item of the gas cap. Is that correct?
Correct.
So those appear to be consistent with of a human finger.
Objection, Your Honor. And it's not his expertise.
He's a crime scenes expert. He looks at impressions. Overruled. Go ahead.
I don't have a scaled photo, but just based off the size of typical vehicles, that looks to be pretty close to about the width of a finger.
I'm sorry,
It appears to be the similar width to a finger. 2 fingers, actually.
Generally speaking, when a vehicle like this is stored for your review, is it your expectation that law enforcement and others will not be touching or handling or trying to or touching or handling the exterior of the vehicle before you review it?
Correct.
And it was your expectation that this policy and this process was followed in this case?
Yes.
Your Honor, just given the glare issues with the Alamo, I would move to publish this individually to the jury.
Any objection?
Objection.
Yeah, publish individually to the jury.
Thank you. It appears that the jurors have viewed the exhibit.
One more juror wants to take a look at it.
Oh,
You can just bring it over to him if you can, please. And just side, please don't show it to each other. Just look at it yourself individually.
all right. And it appears that the jury has had a chance to view 514.
514.
May. All right. Mr. Nolad, were you shown any scene photographs taken of the vehicle before it was seized at any point?
I don't believe so.
All right. I'm going to publish what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 508. See the smearing area and kind of the same area as Exhibit 514?
I believe so, yes.
I have no further questions.
Redirect?
Yes.
Mr. Nallad, Mr. Mr. Zacher asked you on 508 if you see the same area of smearing. Can you take a look at this closely and see, and tell me if you see that?
It's kind of hard to see with the reflection of the side of the vehicle. There's snow on the vehicle, which was not there when I looked at it. There's kind of a sheen to this page, so it's probably not an exact perfect rendition of what the actual picture looks like. I don't actually see the exact 2 fingers that I saw in that other picture.
Okay. Any objection?
No.
Go ahead. And personally publish, that is not, go ahead. Look at it yourself, each individually, if you could please. Go ahead.
Mr. Naled, I'm going to ask you to take a look at the PowerPoint exhibit and photograph number 40004. Mr. Zacher asked you about the area to the rear of the vehicle. Instead, it looks like some area's been wiped off. Can you tell for certain if it's that we're seeing any reflections or that there is some sort of disturbance on the side of the vehicle there?
I can't really make that determination based on this photo. There is some shininess to it that could be a reflection from the light in there. It also could have been wiped off. I can't really tell.
And that area where the gas cover is to the rear, is that a frequently touched area of the exterior of a vehicle?
Yes.
While we're getting to 43,
All right. Mr. Zacher had asked you about where you had located the fiber or apparent fiber on this particular location. Can I ask you why you would look in a location like this for a fiber based on your training in evidence collection?
We looked at the entire underside of the vehicle. It just so happened that that's where we located a fiber, an apparent fiber.
Is there anything special about this particular area that would tend to collect fibers?
There's sharp corners on it, which collect things like that.
He also talked about other things that were collected. Were there items that you did not collect?
Yes.
And why was that?
We've photo documented and scaled item number 4. Taking a gas tank off to collect it would have been a lot of work. There's not a whole lot we could do with the actual item. Anybody that would look at it later on can do the same analysis that they'd be able to do with just a scaled photograph.
Also hazardous, probably, to transport a gas tank?
Yeah.
Your Honor, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Recross?
Just one. Mr. Nollet, is it correct that, to your knowledge, no analyst actually examined your photographs of item number 4?
I don't believe anybody did.
Thank you.
No? Any redirect from there?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. You may step down. Why don't we take a morning break to, you can go ahead and step down. Oh, thank you. We'll take a morning break till 10:30. We'll try to get going right away if we can. Please don't talk about the case, and we'll see you then. You may be seated. Anything we need to talk about?
Not from my perspective, Your Honor.
No, did I get all the exhibits back to the clerk?
There's one. I've got.
Okay.
I have one.
All right. All right, thank you. See you by 10:30.
Oh, thank you. So 15-minute break. 10:30, you think? 10:30 we have to come back. You know, I need to go to commissary this building just for a coffee. Yeah. Hello? Do you need this card or are you recording back there? Okay, I'll bring it down.
Is this stuff on? Is it Corti or is it on the Zooms? This one? Are they zooming this one?
I do not know.
Let's see. Come up now and produce something.
I thought they were.
You guys cool if I just leave this hanging here? I'm gonna leave my mic here like this. That's all right. Sure.
Probably don't know.
A little more oxygen in the room. This is right on. See what's happening.
Well, at some point, yeah.